Sin City. Saturday night. Fight night. Any given weekend, this place is the entertainment capital of the world. When combat sports shines brightest on the Las Vegas Strip. Boxing and mixed martial arts need some new voices. And Franchise Sports Media got them for you. Join Kalani Lua and Griff and Kalani each week as they bring you news and hot takes from inside the octagon and the ring. Get your popcorn ready. It's showtime. FSM's main event starts right now.
What's going on, fight fans? Thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of the main event right here on Franchise Sports Media. I'm Kalani Lua.
I'm Griff and Kalani.
Man, Griff. UFC 291 took place in your backyard.
It did,
Salt
baby.
Lake City.
Or Head Kick City, as it's called now, baby. It's Head Kick City.
Griff, let's get into the main event. There's a new BMF in the UFC. Baddest mother, shut your mouth. I'm talking about the BMF. Justin Gaethje head kick knockout over Dustin Poirier, second round. My man, you called it, so the floor is yours.
I spent all Saturday night after the fights, ridiculing everybody on social media, absolutely tearing everybody down. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to apologize to absolutely nobody. The chef does what he wants, all right? Yes, I called it, but there's no way I could have imagined that's how it ended. I never in my wildest dreams thought we were going to see War 2, see the second overall BMF title be won by a second round head kick, the same head kick that we saw Leon Edwards get Kamaru Usman out of with back at UFC, was it 278? Right there in Head Kick City. I love the fight. I think a lot of people watching could say it was a little disappointing because it's Justin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, and you want to see those two boys fight for at least into the championship rounds. But overall, it was a great fight. Justin Gaethje proved that he really is not just one of the hottest lightweights right now. He might go down as one of the greatest lightweights to ever compete in this organization.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, you look at the competition that he has faced. You look at what he has done against that competition. Realistically, he's never been torched in a fight except for against Khabib. You can say that's the only one where he wasn't fully competitive. Even in his losses, still competitive. Dropped Charles Oliveira, got back up and submitted him. Went to war with Dustin Poirier. Went to war with Michael Chandler. So even in defeats, Gaethje is still out there giving you what you just said, a war. I would say this, just to go off the theme, anytime I'm in the main event and the UFC's in Salt Lake City, I'm practicing head kicks.
I'm going all head kicks.
Look, I almost want to say, hey, can y'all just throw head kicks the whole time? We can make this a whole thing. We could tag this into a whole thing. But you're right. Really thought Justin Gaethje would have had a chance using his leg kicks. He's got some of the most vicious leg kicks in the UFC. Would have thought, okay, maybe if he uses that to take away the lead leg of Poirier, he can get Poirier to slow down, not have so much leverage on his punches, pick them apart that way. But to go up top to the top floor, hey, boom, OMG.
Beautiful thing.
That was awesome. And you're right. It's one of those where you say, one, you love these guys so much, you don't want to see either one really lose. But for it to end in the second round, fascinating. But then you're like, oh no. Hey, can you revive him, give him 5 minutes breaks and then go again? It's one of those where I don't know if they'll ever fight again, but it was phenomenal for it to go down the way that it did. Absolutely entertaining. And like you said, for it to be Head Kick City almost a year later.
A year to the day.
Man, that was awesome.
It was so cool, man. I'm proud to be from the great state of Utah, all right? It's no Las Vegas, but we're coming up as what, the second fight capital of the world? There's an argument. If we keep this train going, we keep doing this, Griff, it's going to be soon.
You've had 2 pay-per-views in Utah.
And they've been phenomenal.
Yeah, but how is that the fight capital of the world?
Because
New York constantly has one. LA constantly has one. Florida keeps going with fights. You can't sit here and claim to be the fight capital of the world. If you want to say, well, we're maybe the 5th fight capital city on the West Coast, maybe. But come on, Griff, you guys have to be more of, not just a yearly thing. It has to be multiple shows there. Smaller shows, other shows. Granted, I'll give you all this. As the city grows and as the state expands, it's possible you guys can get more events there. I'll give you that. But right now, pump the brakes, brother.
I'm gonna pump the brakes.
Enjoy two phenomenal finishes in your city. Enjoy that. Don't look so far ahead.
I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. You're right. But good Lord. I mean, even the Utah crowd during the press conferences and the event itself, fired up, always heated, always ready for the fights. Utah, it's underrated. If you want MMA, if you want to find a deep love of MMA in any state in this country, go look at Utah, baby.
And if you want to find some other stuff, ask some NBA players what it's like to go to Utah. But nonetheless,
Yeah.
I'll leave that alone because that's a whole nother topic. Although DDP, the Prixies, he might like it there considering how they feel about certain people.
Yikes. I don't condone those comments. But but can we get in real quick though? Just real quick, the future for both these men.
Well, it's hard to say because Justin Gaethje probably is now next in line for a shot at the lightweight title. He gets the winner of Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira. 2, he awaits the winner of that. For Poirier, again, you lose to a guy who's now the #1 contender. You've beaten most. As I said, as we did on the Fight Junkie show, shout out to Fight Junkies on that show. Great episode that was.
Yes, sir.
Be sure to go on YouTube and check it out. But I think, if I'm Poirier, I got to start looking around and say, I might need to move up to 170. I might need to move up to welterweight because, again, where do I go from here? Chandler's not going to fight anybody. Maybe I do the 4th run around with Chip Boy if, according to some people, he gets off some of the nice stuff.
Yeah.
And gets his butt in the ring.
It's possible.
Yeah. Does he take on the loser of Islam and Oliveira while Gaethje gets the winner? I don't know. What do you think?
Somebody said something on social media that was really interesting to me. And it might not seem like the right route. It might not seem like the route to go if you want to see Dustin Poirier in a title fight again. But why not see what Max Holloway is going to be doing next? I mean, the man has had his issues with having to overcome Volkanovski.
He's got Korean Zombie coming up.
He's got Korean Zombie coming up.
Maybe after that fight.
Maybe after the fight. And who knows? Maybe we see Max Holloway. He finally says, you know what? Volkanovski, this is his time. I'm just not going to be able to get another shot in this division. Might as well pop up to 155. He's been in there a couple times already. And let's have a rematch with him and Dustin Poirier. Why? Because what else is Dustin Poirier going to do?
Move up to welterweight.
Why move up to welterweight when that whole entire division is jammed up?
That's a whole new division. I'm a former interim champion here. I got the name. I got the popularity. Griff, if I move up to 170, I'm not starting with the 25th ranked welterweight in the UFC and working my way up ever so slowly. No, I get up there and start 1, maybe 2 guys. I'm already in the #1 contender's possible title shot, and depending how it all falls down. If Kamaru Usman moves on, okay, that's one guy that you're taking out from there. Leon Edwards, Kobe Kevin, Jorge Masvidal is out of there. Gilbert Burns has been losing fights up there. Plus, I believe Gilbert and Dustin Poirier, they've trained in American top teams, so I don't know if they would necessarily fight each other. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, okay. Poirier moves up to 170, takes on Wonderboy Thompson, who's not the biggest welterweight, isn't necessarily a grappler. He gets a stand-up guy. He starches him. Not saying he would, but if he does, Griff, you really think he got to get 5 more wins before we start talking about him in the title picture?
Listen, the welterweight division right now is already surrounded in controversy due to the whole Kobe Covington jumping the line to get that next title shot. And that fight, I believe, has already been booked with him and Leon Edwards. I'm not sure. It hasn't been announced, but it's coming. I think that for Dustin Poirier, his entire career, a lot like Justin Gaethje, these boys danced around being a champion and getting that lightweight title. But in the end, are they not 2 of the biggest names in the UFC, regardless of division?
Of course.
These boys' careers aren't defined by whether they're going to be champions of a division or not. And obviously, they want that. Obviously, that's the main goal. But I think for Dustin Poirier, if he wants to keep fighting, I say for him, maybe instead of just fixating on trying to get right back into title contention, give the fans, give yourself, he would love an opportunity to fight Max again. Those two had a great battle that first time around. It was, I believe
he was at 145 when he beat Max Holloway the first time.
Didn't Poirier beat Max Holloway to become the interim lightweight champ though?
Listen.
Let's hear it.
The first time they fought was at 145.
Mm-hmm.
The second time was at 155.
Okay.
Dustin won both. And when they fought at 55, he dominated him. If I'm up 2-0 on you with a submission and a dominant victory, why the hell do I need to go back a third time and fight you?
Because nobody else.
Conor McGregor. I'm just saying.
Conor McGregor.
If I'm Dustin Poirier, yes, a fight with Max Holloway sounds good, but for him to come back up to lightweight again, no, Max, you got to show me you belong in this division first before I entertain a third bout with you. I'm already.
It's Max Holloway.
Bro, but when he moved out to 155, Max Holloway looked like a kid in there. We love Max Holloway, but he did not look physically right at 155 against Poirier. Now, you're talking about he needs to move up. Poirier's like, okay, so I already looked bigger than you before, and I was stronger than you before. I'm going to still be bigger and stronger than you now. So unless Holloway is willing to take a year, maybe a year and a half off to properly put on the weight and cut down to 155, guess what? I'm still going to be bigger and stronger than you. And I'm up 2-0. Why would I entertain a third fight when I can move on to other challenges? As fans, we don't necessarily need to define a fighter by championships. But as these fighters, it's only a handful of them, Mark Hunt, Roy Nelson, a couple guys like that, who realize I'm not going after the title. I might as well get these knockout bonuses. Everyone else still wants a title.
Okay, but you're saying, though, it's absolutely nonsense to think of Max Holloway moving up to 155 to fight Dustin Poirier. But it's completely reasonable for Dustin Poirier to jump up to a welterweight and get instantly into title contention. I mean, did you see?
Did I say instantly?
Instantly, whether you said it's not going to be, he doesn't need 5 fights, but boy, he needs at least 3. He's going to need at least 3.
That's exactly what I said. He beats one guy, maybe 1 or 2 more. He's going to be in contention. So what you're saying is already what I said. He doesn't necessarily, dude. But Poirier's one of the most popular guys.
Yes.
So when
so is Max.
Exactly. But I've already beaten Max. Nobody at welterweight has beaten Dustin yet. So if Dustin moves up, looks good, and starches some guys, guess what? It's not going to take me long to get a title picture. All of you guys already had your shots at the champion, and you couldn't do it. Some new blood. Me, one of the most popular fighters on the roster.
The thing is, like, Dustin, I mean, did you watch the weigh-ins when he and Gaethje weighed in and Jorge Masvidal came out there? I never saw, before that, I'd never seen Dustin Poirier and Jorge Masvidal actually stand next to each other like that. And Jorge Masvidal, the size difference is absolutely there. It stood out to me. That Dustin Poirier, I think, is kind of like Colby Covington. Colby Covington's size is perfect he's the perfect welterweight, just like Dustin Poirier. I think Dustin Poirier is the perfect lightweight. He started at featherweight, eventually grew older, and his body grew, and now he's kind of the perfect size for lightweight. I don't know if that transition up to welterweight is the best thing for him. Those boys are going to be overshadowing him a little bit.
Well, we will say the same about Covington being a smaller guy at 170, yet he's still in title contention. So you're talking about Poirier looks small when he cut down to 155 against a fighter, former fighter, who's not in any sort of training camp, who has that extra weight on him. Oh, he looks small then. Yeah,
height,
guess
weight,
what? I make Max Holloway look small when he's cutting weight and we stand next to each other. Yes. Come on, man. You can't.
I'm just saying, man.
It'd be different if you talked about, hey, this is middle of off season and we saw them stand next to each other and he looked small. That's different. I'm shrinking. Your boy McGregor, when he cut down to 145, looked like death.
Looked like Skeletor. He did a little bit.
He stands next to anybody. He made Joe Rogan look like a heavyweight when they stand next to each other.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That's true.
Nothing, because we're both on 2 different ends of the spectrum here. Poirier taking on Holloway will be a great fight.
Yes.
I'm already up 2-0. You haven't proven yourself at 55. When you try to jump up here, I showed that you weren't ready for this. 70, as I get older, is a division I've not tried my best at yet. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to fight. These guys this is not baseball, football as a quarterback, or basketball where we're trying to go into our late 30s and 40s. I'm trying to get what I can while I can. I haven't been able to crack through 155. Maybe I need to try another division. And look, maybe Poirier tries 170 and it's just not for him, like you said. But like Cerrone, like Diaz, like Masvidal, like many others, I maybe should try my luck there to see if it's a little bit better. Because at 55, no bueno.
We'll see.
Talking about trying their luck, we got to move along quickly here.
Yeah, yes, we do.
The co-main event saw Alex Pereira moving up from middleweight to 205. He comes out victorious. Split decision victory over former light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz. What did you think? Did you agree with the decision?
I mean, again, another one that the chef called. You know, this one I saw Alex Pereira winning. We did. Hey, good job. I want to congratulate that one.
Thank you, chef.
Good job, chef.
Yes, chef.
I think that was a doozy. That was I didn't know about that one. I thought instantly when the third round finished, after watching those two kind of lumber around, after, enduring the elevation of Utah, you could see it was affecting not just Jan at 40 years old, but Alex Pereira at 35, 36. I mean, you can argue that it was the right call. He had more significant strikes landed. Jan did, though, have much more takedowns. He did have a lot more control time on the ground. So it could have gone either way. I think Alex Pereira ultimately getting the victory is honestly better for the 205-pound division. I think now you have somebody in there that lightens it up and gets everybody excited, because so far, like we've seen, this division has been nothing but a mess.
It really has been, and it was interesting to see how he adjusted at the new weight class. Looks better there. Obviously, he's got to improve on his grappling. What I was surprised is him being a Brazilian native, that his jiu-jitsu didn't come into place while they were on the mat. I really thought we were going to see more submission attempts or at least some transitions. Really not as much, or at least not as crisp as I was thinking it would be. You got to realize, it's called Brazilian. Huh?
Are you saying from Poirier you were expecting that?
I was expecting more because, again, it's called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Pretty much everyone down there knows how to throw leg kicks, submissions, and play football, soccer here in America. So for you not to be able to do one or if not all three of those things, little surprising to me. But again, it was his first time. Blachowicz is no joke there. We'll see how he adjusts going forward from there. It will be interesting to see what is next for him. Does he take on your boy Yari Prochazka? Is there somebody else waiting in the ring that maybe he takes on? Because Yari, who's supposed to be coming back, but I don't know. We've seen crazier things happen, but it'll be interesting to see the new face at 205 and what he can do there.
Absolutely.
Speaking of new faces, or at least seeing what they could do, let's go a little bit back to what may be a new face in a whole nother promotion if they don't re-sign him. The heavyweight, the beast, Derek Lewis.
Oh, I love that boy. That boy's
opens up with a flying knee.
Shout out Jorge Masvidal, baby. He said, come out with that knee.
He comes out with the knee, lands it, mauls him. It's over, barely over 30 seconds. Takes out the shorts because, his balls get hot.
They
Doesn't
get hot.
suck it. Runs around. Derek Lewis is phenomenal. We're showing the six-pack abs. I'm jealous that he had those and I don't. But Derek Lewis now is a free agent. And so what I found interesting, when we were breaking down the fight on Fight Junkies, again, check that out on YouTube. Great episode. But he was on the prelims.
Yeah.
Guy has the most knockouts in UFC history, and he's on the prelims because of the injury, not injury, but the missed weight by Pereira taking on Stephen Thompson. Pereira missed weight. Thompson made it. He hasn't been paid by the UFC. What the hell? He made weight.
It's a business.
But that got taken off. Lewis fights gets moved up to the main card.
Beautiful.
And now you realize that, wait a minute, was he on the prelims because this was his last fight in the UFC? And they maybe wanted to take away some of his value and star power from that. We talk about popular fighters. Derek Lewis is definitely one of those. What did you think of the performance, and what do you think Derek Lewis should go next?
I think it was the best thing for this card that Derek Lewis got moved up into the main event. Listen, we all understand, all right? When you put Derek Lewis fighting in Houston in his home turf, he's not going to do as great. But anywhere else, this boy is must-see TV, all right? Dropping the shorts. Let's not even talk about the post-fight antics. Let's talk about the fight itself. This boy got him out in 30 seconds?
Just over 30 seconds.
It was absolutely phenomenal. And then a flying knee at heavyweight at that size. That was gorgeous. All right, Derek Lewis. Wrong Derek. But hey, still that same power.
Sport.
Still that same power, though.
It is.
Derek Lewis is absolutely, his stock skyrocketed the second that fight was over. And I think the UFC has to really take some time and think about this. We know at one point Derek Lewis was in title contention at heavyweight, and then it kind of had a little bit of a skid, but he still has that star power. And what do we know about the UFC? It's not just about how well you perform in the sport itself, but how big of a star and how big of a draw are you? And I think Derek Lewis still has that draw. He still has that star power. And I think you might have been alluding to this, and I don't want to break. And if I do, I'm apologize. But if his next move isn't with the UFC, the next best thing is going to be him going over the PFL and being the first MMA fight with Francis Ngannou.
I mean, that makes the perfect sense, is that the PFL tries to sign him. Ngannou does need an opponent. Their heavyweight division is not as strong. You bring in Derek Lewis. They rematch each other in one of the worst UFC heavyweight bouts we've ever seen between those two. There was some leftover gun shyness from Ngannou from the Stipe loss, and then Derek Lewis with his back issues, which he's talked about several times. There is that. So that does make a lot of sense. The UFC keep him from going over there. You don't want to help out your competition. You don't want to give Ngannou, who didn't want to re-sign with you, you don't want to give him a highly touted opponent. So we'll see what the UFC decides to do. I would love to see Derek Lewis stay in the UFC, but then again, I also want to see these fighters get paid accordingly. And if he can go ahead and get the bag over in the PFL with the fight against Ngannou possibly next year, then hey, go for it. We shall see how that all unfolds, but it will be interesting to see if Derek Lewis stays in the UFC, where does he go from here? Who are some opponents he can go after? Does he get back in the title contention, or does he go the other way and go to the PFL and try his luck against Francis? That is going to be interesting in itself.
Just go get that money, baby. You are in the perfect position. The UFC doesn't want to help PFL. Guess what? They better come with that paycheck.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit because UFC 291 wasn't the only fight going down this past weekend.
It was a good
we
day.
had right here in our own backyard in Las Vegas, in the squared circle, Terence Bud Crawford. I would say it's about, but it turned into a public execution.
Yeah.
Terence Bud Crawford dominated Errol Spence. Listen, how the fight played out, and we're going to talk about it really quick. How the fight played out, sure. It was all Crawford. Errol Spence is legit that dude, though.
Yes,
he is
absolutely.
legit one of the best in the world. Sometimes this stuff happens, folks. Sugar Shane Mosley and Oscar De La Hoya. Somebody had to lose. Felix Trinidad, Bernard Hopkins. Somebody had to lose. It happens, okay? Yeah. Roberto Duran, Tommy Hearns. Somebody had to go to sleep. Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler. Somebody had to lose. So it just happens. But all credit, all roses, all hail to Bud Crawford. He went out there and took on one of the best in the world and showed that, no, while he's one of the best, I'm possibly the best in the world. What did you think of the actual fight itself?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's unfortunate because somebody had to lose, but in a fight like that, in a performance like that, with the fight ending in the 9th round, Crawford showed that, yeah, this is a bout of two really high elite boxers in this sport. But the way he finished it, he said, but there are levels, and I'm at the top of the levels. I am the level. He is now, 40-0? 40-0, or what's the record? 39-0?
No, 40. My bad. Excuse me. He's 40-0.
40-0. I mean, the man is really kind of shot out, and especially in this year where boxing has really stepped it up and given the fans the matchups that we've been all wanting to see. He really showed out, and he's like, not even a little bit ago, there were people, me included, who were saying Tank Davis was the face of this sport. Tank Davis was the one everybody should be looking at. But dang, Saturday night happened. And it just gets me more vamped up for the sport of boxing to see what's coming next, what's coming down more later this year, in the future. It's looking bright. I love it.
You might have had a co-host who was telling you that there were other guys out there who also the face of boxing, and their big fight just hasn't come up yet. You might have had a co-host who was trying to tell you, and you didn't want to listen because you were caught up in the moment, as many of us get some from time to time. But you might have had a co-host who said, there's a guy out there named Terence Crawford. Well, Terence Crawford just showed you who he was.
It's an exciting sport.
Eminem brings him out.
Yes, he did.
Comes out with the fishnet because Errol Shark Spence goes out there, takes on one of the best. He is now the only male fighter in the 4-belt era to be undisputed champion in 2 different divisions.
That's
phenomenal.
Yes.
Terence Crawford went out there to show that he was stronger, more technically sound, and he showed he can be aggressive, but he can also counter with the best of them. He's a switch fighter, but he stayed in orthodox mode pretty much the entire fight. Knocked Errol Spence down for the first time in his career, first time in the 2nd round, 2 more times later on in the bout. It seemed, and I said this in watching the fight, when Errol Spence would land a punch, it didn't seem to affect Terence Crawford. But when Terence Crawford landed punches, Errol's moving back, head snapping back. His face was all lumped up. He looked like Martin Lawrence from the episode where they had Tommy Hearns on there. It was bad. But again, this stuff happens. When he knocked down Errol Spence, I want to say the 3rd time, he looks out to the crowd and he's yelling. And when you're watching, you can't really see because everyone's standing up. The camera angles, maybe it's not showing it. Comes out, he's talking to the super welterweight champion, Jamal Charlo. And he's telling him, you're next.
Yep.
You're next, buddy. So it would be interesting. Charlo, just like Errol Spence, Texas natives, Dallas for Spence, Houston for Charlo. He's got to be next. There's really nobody else out there. There's a gentleman out there named Boots. He probably could be next too, but he hasn't had that standout performance just yet. Great record. So I believe he's 34-0, 33-0, like 29, 30 knockouts. But again, it hasn't been against some of the guys we are more familiar with that kind of says, okay, he's fought legit competition. We'll see. Maybe he gets his turn.
Yeah.
But Terence Bud Crawford, Canelo.
Ooh.
Somebody's knocking at the door.
Oh.
Somebody's in your living room. He takes out Charlo. And regardless of what happens in Canelo's next fight, and what, because Canelo's moving down, I honestly believe Bud Crawford and Canelo is the fight that we need to see within the next year and a half.
Bud Crawford versus Canelo.
Yes.
I'm sorry to say it. I'm more of an MMA guy.
It's
I
okay.
follow more of the UFC and everything else in this realm. But I will tell you, I think if we have another night like this where boxing is going up against a big major UFC event, and on the boxing card, the main event is Canelo versus Bud Crawford, I don't know who the UFC could put on that card that could compete with that. That is big.
I think there's a gentleman out there by the name of John Jones.
Man, unless John Jones is a real...
Jones.
They're going to have to bring Francis back to match up with that matchup.
I mean, again, it's a year and a half. Many things could happen then. But for you, I know if they say Conor McGregor was fighting a broomstick, we know what you're going to be watching. It is what it is in that particular one. Again, he needs to get off this stuff. But
got to stop pissing hot.
Bud Crawford went out there in dominating fashion, which was absolutely phenomenal. The head movement, the footwork, the counter punching, really, like you said, there was levels to this. He was head and shoulders, possibly waist-side, above Errol Spence. On that night, now they fought at 147. There is a rematch clause that Spence, being a champion in that division, could initiate and say, I want a rematch, possibly somewhere in the December time frame. But he wants it at 154. Now, they move up to 154. I don't know why you would do a rematch just yet. In that short period of time, we've seen guys like Sugar Ray Leonard lose to Roberto Duran, come back in a rematch 6 months later, beat him. We've seen rematches from other fighters come back and say, okay, let me make some adjustments. But with that type of beatdown, I don't know. It's not like it was a flash knockout. I would tell you this. I would almost give him credit if it was one of those flash knockouts where they was just throwing leather and he caught him. Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hearns, I thought it should have been a rematch between that because they gave us such a war the first round that I felt like, okay, the way it ended in the third round with that knockout, we probably should get a different one because Hearns might change up his game plan. I don't know if a rematch here this quick would be worthy. I'll still tune in. I don't know if it would be worthy, but Charlo would be next. If he defeats Spence again, Charlo, there's nobody else out there for him but Canelo. That's Canelo really just says, I'm going to 175 and staying there or whatever and trying to get my rematch against Bivol. That is the fight to make it. Oh, Lordy. Would that be awesome?
They just need to not pivot backwards. They need to not take that next step forward. Keep this momentum going. Let's keep getting these great matchups, these great fights going. And boxing, next thing you know, the UFC is going to be scrambling. We need to compete. Boxing's on a new. Boxing's acting different these days.
Here's a weird thing, and I saw this in a comment, and I had commented on this on a previous post. People talk about boxing being this way. You do realize that boxing, probably the last 5-6 years, has given us some great fights throughout all the divisions. We've got Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 times. We got Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz twice. Joshua versus Usyk twice. We got Bud Crawford. He took on Sean Porter. Possibly he hasn't taken on Keith Thurman yet, but he took on Danny Garcia. We got Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman. We got Sean Porter and Errol Spence. Errol Spence and Kell Brook and Terence Crawford, the Charlo brothers, Tank Davis moving all the way up. Yes, we are starting to get the stars aligned with some of these bigger name fighters fighting each other. But let's look back at the last 5-6 years. These guys have been fighting each other throughout their careers moving up. The only problem is they don't fight as frequently as UFC cards. It's easy to get caught up in the UFC being that because guess what? We just talked about UFC 291. 2 weeks from now, UFC 292.
Yeah.
3 weeks from that, 293. So it's easy to say the UFC just passing them by. Well, guess what? If you look at boxing, if you look at their stars, those guys pretty much do fight. It's spaced out a little bit, but those guys do fight other good boxers, top tier guys. Unfortunately, they don't stack their cards like the UFC. So we can't tune in and see Tyson Fury take on Dylan White. And then on the undercard, we're getting a really good welterweight fight. Then on the opening of that card, we're getting a really good light heavyweight fight. We don't get that in boxing. Whereas in the UFC, what did we just talk about? Derek Lewis, Alex Pereira, Jan Blachowicz, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje.
Stacked old cards.
Exactly.
Big
so
old stacked
to
old
me, while I do get that UFC did pass them, I also don't feel like boxing is that far behind when you look at the model. Stack cards, one main event card. Pretty frequently, more spread out. To me.
Well, I know we got to move on because I really want to get into this. I want to get into this next topic. I'll just say though, when it comes to that argument, yes, they are fighting. The stars do eventually meet up and fight. But I mean, just for that example of Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, that trilogy took, over 3 years, 4 years to get done?
How often are they supposed to fight?
I mean, hell, even a rematch in the UFC, those boys, there's sometimes where there's a rematch, 9 months. They have time, they need time to recover, but you don't go like a year and a half before you get the rematch and then another year before the next one. It's just, you got to do it a little bit more timely, a little bit more urgency. That's the only criticism I've had of boxing.
The UFC only had one particular rivalry that went that quickly, and that was Devin Figueroa versus Moreno. Their last 3 fights are the only ones that was back to back to back. Every other one spaced out. We still ain't got McGregor Diaz 3.
We still haven't gotten that one.
Gaethje and Poirier, they fought 6 fights ago.
Yeah.
So exactly. So these rematches do not happen as quickly as you think. Stipe Miocic beat Francis. It took Francis a little while to get back there and fight him again. Stipe DC, okay, there was nobody else. Alexander Gustafsson versus John Jones took a little while for that to come back. Now that might have been because John Jones has some other issues.
Yeah.
These rematches in UFC don't happen in you don't fight in January, fight in June, and fight in November. That don't happen, brother.
Unless you're Izzy Adesanya.
Very few that happens with. So once again, these guys do fight each other. It's just spaced out, and again, you're spacing out. Why? Not only to recover, get in the venue, but then also you want to line it up. Okay, we're not a stacked card. I can't necessarily go in early November when the UFC has their New York card. Can't go in early July when they have their International Fight Week. I'm not going to end up like Canelo versus Jose Kovalev, where we're waiting over an hour for us to go out there because their fight is bigger than ours. We're fighting for an actual title. Their title was made up, but it's Diaz and Masvidal, so it's a bigger fight.
Yeah.
Boxing does fight each other. It's just not stacked cards, and it's more spread out. If they did stacked cards, then maybe they would do it more frequently, but they don't, and that's just the sport of boxing. Speaking of boxing, Jake Paul taking on Nate Diaz.
Finally here.
Diaz making his boxing debut, finally. Jake Paul looking to bounce back from his loss to Tommy Fury. I got to be honest, I am very disappointed in this buildup. Jake Paul has talked about it. I'm very disappointed. I thought this buildup was going to be something. I could see where Nate Diaz is coming from, not talking so much ish to go out there and just focus on getting ready. But again, we really thought one of the key things for this was going to be the buildup, the anticipation. Hell, what made the McGregor Diaz one so awesome was the trash talking leading up to it. And that was on 10 days notice, Griff.
Water balls getting thrown, all the nonsense.
What are your thoughts on Paul Diaz going down in the desert? Not this one, the other desert. You know, the one that's way out there.
Way yonder.
What are your thoughts?
I'm so happy this is how Nate Diaz went about this, all right? I'm going to say this as a as a combat sports fan. I'm so happy that Nate Diaz saw the opportunity to get paid fighting this former YouTuber, now attempting a rising career in boxing. And Jake Paul has come out, like you said. He said he's not happy with the way Nate Diaz has gone about this. He was expecting the Nate Diaz from the Conor fights, the Nate Diaz from the Jorge Masvidal fight. He was expecting that Nate Diaz. But instead, Nate Diaz said, I'm good off that. I'm good off that. To quote Nate Diaz, he doesn't do all that touch butt stuff, all right? He came in, he doesn't see you as a worthy opponent. He doesn't see you as somebody who's really a challenge for him. He doesn't see you as dangerous. So no, he's not going to get all ramped up with you in the press conferences. He's not going to entertain the reporter you hired to ask him the dumbest questions you ever heard. He came in, he said, I'm going to sign the dotted line. I'm going to show up. I will fight you on Saturday. But besides that, you're not getting one more thing from me, kid. Not one more thing. I'm Nate Diaz, baby.
Okay, well, guess what, Nate? We're going to see how them pay-per-view numbers look. We're going to see how that gate looks. Over there, it's a little bit different. They show up for their bouts because they don't get a lot over there. But we're going to see how the pay-per-view numbers are. We're going to see what the social media is talking like. Okay, fine. You don't want to do any of that. Guess what? When your check ain't as big as you thought it was going to be, because the pay-per-view numbers ain't where they should have been, because you didn't want to do your part in helping building this fight up, don't sit here and be like, oh, on the inside, man. And guess what? You better show up and win. You better show up and win. Don't go out there and like, when I slapped them in the 6th round, so I won. They all on steroids. Yeah, even though 6 of my own teammates popped out for steroids. I'm just saying, I love Nate Diaz in the world of MMA, and I get it. Okay, focus on a particular fight. I get that. But this is also entertainment, Griff. This is also entertainment.
Yeah.
If I'm to spend my money on the pay-per-view, tell me why. Tell me why ain't nothing but... Okay, let's stop.
Love that song.
It's grown on me over the years.
It's good,
It's grown on me over the years. But seriously, There's a reason they release trailers for upcoming movies to get you excited. I went and saw Mission Impossible 7. The trailers before that. Ooh, I'm interested in this. That looks pretty good. Interesting. Oh, they're bringing this back. It gets you excited for it. You talk about it. You do the interviews. You do the press. I get if you don't want to go overboard with it. I haven't seen an interview on ESPN.
No,
I ain't seen one on Fox Sports. I ain't seen one with Luke Thomas, with Errol Hawani, with us here, Fight Junkies. I haven't seen it anywhere. My thing is, okay, Griff, I almost forgot about this fight entirely.
Yeah.
I almost forgot about this. So again, what if I wanted to make plans next weekend? Oh man, let's go ahead and let's go down to the beach. Let's go to Mount Charleston, out to Lake Mead, whatever. No, wait, there's a fight going on. Whereas for Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, for Gaethje and Poirier, we knew a month in advance. It's almost here, baby. It's almost here. That's what I'm talking about. Those guys didn't do a lot of shit talking. They didn't do a lot of hype for the fight. Bud Crawford, Errol Spence didn't do a lot of shit talking.
No.
But they did the proper, necessary media obligations to get you, oh yeah, that's right, they are fighting pretty soon. Oh yeah, this is going on. This one,
there's opportunity still. We still got the build up. We got the weigh-ins, do we not? Later on, we got the pre-fight press conference. There's opportunities. Maybe we'll see Nate do something. But at the end of the day, Nate Diaz, this realm right now that Jake Paul operates in, he has no intentions of staying here long. He wants to get his money. Maybe after Jake Paul, whatever happens, he might try and get one more boxing fight. I can see that.
oh, Nate Diaz?
Nate Diaz, maybe.
Well, yeah.
But then ultimately, I think we all think the same thing. I think Nate Diaz eventually wants to make his way back to the UFC because there's that one fight that he wants. Dana wants. Notorious wants.
Notorious wants a lot of stuff right now.
He wants a lot of stuff right now. But hey, UFC 300, like we said, everyone's speculating when we might see Conor come back. What better opponent to match with him on UFC 300 than Nate Diaz?
That's a good way to just say Conor needs more time to get those certain supplements out of him. But
Possibly.
if Nate Diaz goes out there and gets smoked, there's nobody else in boxing that will want to fight him. Think about that. If you go out there and get smoked, Jake Paul's able to live off the fact that for 5 fights, I knocked ex-NFL, ex-MMA champions out. I knocked out an ex-NBA player. And while I lost, I didn't necessarily get my ass wrung by Tommy Fury. So, okay, I can still fight some guys like yourself. For Nate Diaz, he goes out there and gets mollywopped. He goes out there and gets done up like Terence Crawford and Tyron Woodley. There's not going to be another boxing match. The only other boxing match would be against another former MMA fighter. Anderson Silva maybe, or somebody like that. Anybody else going to want to box him? Anybody got time for that? But we shall see. Diaz and Paul is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
But I'm just disappointed in the buildup. I want to be excited for it.
I do as well, and this will be my last note on it. You want press. You want it all. You want the attention on this. What's going to bring more attention than if Nate Diaz goes out there, beats Jake Paul, his second loss in a row, first loss to a former MMA fighter? That's a career down in the grave, baby. That's a career over.
I mean, yeah, but then he can still fight other YouTubers.
I don't want to watch that.
No, I mean, you don't, but then their YouTube fan base is going to watch it.
Good for them.
Which of those numbers, hey, look, you say good for them. Paul's gotten here for a reason. So you say good for them. He's doing it out here for a reason. We don't know what your boy's going to look like in the ring. His brother Logan, WWE, boxing, they're doing this. So guess what? They can keep fighting other YouTube guys. We may not always be into it. We may not watch those fights. A lot of people are going to watch it, and they're going to be able to cash in. And if a lot of people watch it, what a fighter's going to do? Go where the money is, because it's all about the dollar bills, y'all. With that said, folks, this is another edition of the main event right here on Franchise Sports Media. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I've been Kalani Lua.
I'm Griff and Camp.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Till next time, fight fans.
Peace.